Hello everyone, my name is Vishal Chowgle and today I'll present the evolution of unsteady flow from dry powder inhalers, which has been examined using particle image velocimetry experiments performed at the Laboratory for Turbulence Research in Aerospace and Combustion at Monash University. I'll start with a brief background on why and what we are investigating in this study. In real conditions, when a patient uses a DPI, the inhalation flow generated is time dependent as a result of the patient's inhalation technique. This figure here shows a typical inhalation profile for a DPI model in which the inhaled flow rate rises to a peak value in a short time and then decreases gradually as the inhaled breath comes to a stop. The dynamics of such an unsteady inhalation flow affects the timing of aerosol generation from the device, that is when the aerosol particles are released with respect to the start of the inhalation. It also controls the aerosol dispersion from the device as well as the oropharyngeal deposition, which are both dependent on the time evolution of the particle size characteristics. So in order to understand these interconnected processes, we took a fundamental approach by asking ourselves what the characteristics of an unsteady flow emerging from a DPI looks like. The DPI model we chose to answer this question has two diametrically opposite tangential inlets placed above a hemispherical dosing cup as shown here. The aerosol performance and the flow and particle dynamics of this model have been extensively studied in our previous works. In order to introduce an unsteady flow through this model, we had to modify the way the flow enters these tangential inlets. And we did this by making a smooth 90-degree turning channel that reorients a straight incoming flow into a tangential direction. So as you can see here in the modified DPI model, the flow enters from the bottom side of the model, turns, and then enters the DPI tangentially through the inlets. The only reason this modification was done because the unsteady flow in this case is driven by a piston in our experimental facility, which I'll explain shortly. This is the surface of the model that faces the piston, where the flow enters actually through those ports, which are essentially at the entrance of this turning channel. We also studied this modified model with a grid, where we had a grid with square holes placed at the mouthpiece exit. The flow field velocities in the emerging unsteady DPI flow were measured using time-resolved PIV in a piston-driven water-based experimental facility as illustrated here. The DPI model is placed in an acrylic tank filled with water, and the flow through the DPI is driven by a piston that is operated and controlled by a stepper motor. The PIV images were recorded using a high-speed camera focused on a longitudinal plane outside the DPI mouthpiece exit, which was illuminated by a laser light sheet. These experiments were performed under geometrically and dynamically similar conditions to actual DPIs operating in air by matching the Reynolds numbers in these two cases. The Reynolds number is defined based on the mouthpiece exit inner diameter d and the average axial exit flow velocity u. Scaling up the DPI model and using water as the working fluid allows for higher spatial and temporal resolution PIV measurements to be performed than what's possible in air. Each forward piston stroke physically simulates an inhalation flow period. This is the piston velocity profile with time, and it approximates a trapezoidal velocity profile as you can see here. 27 forward piston strokes were performed in order to obtain ensemble average flow characteristics. The total time of piston movement was 7.1 seconds, and the frame rate at which the images were recorded was 100 Hz. This is the coordinate system that was used. X is the axial direction, Y is the lateral, and U and V are the velocities in those directions respectively. I'll now present the evolution of the flow fields arising from the two DPI models. The animations here will show the ensemble average flow field vectors colored by the ensemble average axial velocities for the two models. The spatial and temporal coordinates are presented in a non-dimensional form upon division by the jet diameter d and the inhalation period t. First, for the model without the grid, we see that the flow arises from the DPI mouthpiece in the form of a jet with two leading vortices on either side. Now this jet spreads and the vortices grow as the flow evolves, and the axial velocities in the central region decrease and become negative. So the white region that you see here is the stagnation region, and the blue is the reverse flow region. These flow characteristics persist for up to the end of the inhalation period and are a result of a highly swirling jet flow that arises from this DPI model. On the other hand, for the model with the grid, we see that the leading vortices arise as well, but they move much faster because the jet velocity is higher. We also see a large stagnation region that forms, but it does not persist for as much longer because it is replaced by a large reverse flow region. Now this reverse flow region persists up to about 3/4 of the inhalation period, as you will see. It's only later that it begins to be replaced by a forward jet flow that is towards the end of the inhalation period. I will now present the vector flow fields and velocity profiles at different times to further analyze the flow evolution. As the inhalation begins, we see that the emerging flow from the no-grid model lags that of from the model with the grid. When we plot the axial and lateral velocity profiles at one jet diameter outside of the mouthpiece exit along the lateral direction, we see that the velocities for the model with the grid are higher. And when we plot the axial velocities along the axial direction at two distances from the flow center line, which are half jet diameter and one jet diameter, we again see that the axial velocities for the model with the grid are higher. After a short time later, the jet flow from the model with the grid has moved further downstream and a stagnation region has formed in the center, whereas the jet flow from the no-grid model is still evolving. The lateral velocities for the no-grid model across the jet are higher, whereas the axial velocities along the jet for the model with the grid are higher at this instant of time. After a short time later, reverse flow already occurs for the model with the grid, whereas for the model without the grid, the axial velocities only now begin to decrease. The axial and lateral velocities at x by d equal to 1 and the axial velocities at y by d is equal to 0.5 and 1 are now become higher for the no-grid model. It is only around the first quarter of the inhalation period that we see the development of the stagnation and reverse flow regions for the no-grid model, whereas for the model with the grid, the reverse flow now spans most of the central region. The axial and lateral velocities at x by d equal to 1 for both the models are similar. However, the axial velocities along the axial direction at y by d equal to 1 from the center line are higher for the no-grid model. The flow patterns and velocity profiles observed for the two models earlier persist up to the half point of the inhalation period, with the stagnation region in the no-grid model now spanning two jet diameters axially. And these flow patterns persist further up to 3/4 of the inhalation period. It is only when the inhalation period begins to end that the flow patterns change, but only for the model with the grid, where the reverse flow now disappears and a forward jet flow appears. The axial velocities for the no-grid model at the two lateral locations from the flow center line are still higher. Let us now bring it all together for an overview of the flow evolution by observing the flow patterns at two times in two different halves of the inhalation period. At both 30 and 90% of the inhalation period, the flow patterns are the same for the no-grid model, with large lateral spreading and central stagnation and reverse flow regions. These occur because the jet flow is highly swirling. On the other hand, for the model with the grid, the large reverse flow region that occurs initially only disappears much later in the inhalation period. So this means that the effect of the grid in reducing the flow swirl only manifests much later towards the end of the inhalation period. And when we look at the axial velocities at one jet diameter from the center line, the lateral spreading is much lower for the model with the grid, which demonstrates the flow straightening effect of the grid. To conclude this presentation, I would state that the evolution of an unsteady flow from DPI models with tangential inlets showed that for a no-grid DPI model, the emerging jet flow is highly swirling, which causes large lateral spreading and central stagnation and reverse flow regions. These can lead to drug losses in the form of particle retention in the device and particle deposition due to impaction in the mouth-throat region. The flow evolution for the DPI model with the grid showed that the emerging jet flow has lower lateral spreading, but has a central reverse flow region that persists for most part of the inhalation period. This may lead to drug losses in the form of particle retention in the device and on the grid, and there is a delayed manifestation of the swirl reducing and flow straightening effect of the grid.